I think Nick Saban getting this Alabama team to the college football playoff this year, I think it's his best coaching job ever. And he's had a lot of great coaching jobs. I think this one, though, is number one. In large part because going into this year, I thought Alabama's roster was going to be the worst in 2007. Like, they have a lot of talent, don't get me wrong. So the worst since 2007 is still pretty damn good for most teams. But you look at this team going into Labor Day weekend, they did not give you a lot of reason to believe that they were going to figure it out or be one of the top teams in the country. They had quarterback instability. They had no game breakers at the skill positions, wide receiver, tight end, running back. They had a shaky offensive line. They had no replacement, really, whatsoever for Will Anderson Jr. on defense. And then even earlier in the season, against Texas Week 2, I was proven right. Like, I thought this was going to be Nick Saban's worst Alabama team since 2007. This was going to be a team that's going to finish outside of the top 15 when it was all said and done. Like, they were going to be really bad for Alabama standards. Like, 9-3 with a fully healthy team. Bad. And early in the year, like, I'll be honest, I was peacocking around. When they lost to Texas, in the fashion, by the way, they lost to Texas, getting handled physically. Jalen Milroe looking like a quarterback with a deer in the headlights. Couldn't hit a deep pass. Holding onto the ball too long. Terrible decisions. Terrible decision making. Defense was pushed around. Offensive line was pushed around. I'm sitting there going, I was right. This team sucks. Again, for Alabama standards, this team is bad. They are nowhere near, going to be one of the top teams in their own division, let alone one of the top teams in the country. And why I think, again, Nick Saban deserves Coach of the Year, honestly, and why this has been his best coaching job of his career is from that point against Texas and really even the next week against South Florida. He took a team that was broken, that was vulnerable for the first time in 15 years, and he slowly built it back up to where they became one of the best teams in the country, and you rarely see coaches do that. This team had a crisis of confidence. They were shook. Again, no one goes into Tuscaloosa unless you're really Joe Burrow and that insane 2019 LSU team. No one goes in there and wins. That's crazy talk. Win a game on the road in Tuscaloosa? No one does that. He went in there. After Texas went in there and did that, didn't panic, didn't freak out. Just every single day got things better and better. Jalen Milroe, from his progression from week number 2 to where he was now, Saturday night after beating Georgia, it's night and day. I think he has been the most improved player in college football this season, in large part because of Nick Saban. Because he's taught him one day at a time here, how to become more comfortable, how to read the defense, how to put your playmakers in more position, use your legs more, get the ball out quicker, be more accurate in the deep passes. Every weakness that Alabama had, that week 2 game against Texas was shored up and became a strength by the time they played Georgia. How many teams can say that? Receivers, quarterback, offensive line, defensive line. They were all humming against the best team in college football Saturday in Atlanta. That's why I think Alabama, and Nick Saban, I should say, why this has been his best coaching job ever. He took a team that was broken, that faced early adversity, and slowly built them up to the point where now they are in the college football playoff, where they are a popular pick to beat Michigan, and a popular choice to win the national title. I never would have thought, again, coming in to this season, never would have thought any of that was remotely possible. I didn't think they would get to 10 wins. I didn't think they'd get anywhere near Atlanta. I certainly didn't think they would be the team that, if you were really started Georgia's win streak back when they beat them in the 2021 SEC title game, and then also ended it 2 years later in that same stadium when they beat Georgia on Saturday night. That is really impressive. I think that's why, for me, that's better than anything Nick Saban has done. Because he's had plenty of talented teams where he's not had to do a lot. Maybe what he's had to do more than ever is keep his team motivated. Like, that's always been the biggest challenge for Nick Saban. Right? You always see him throw the term rat poison around. He's never, in terms of actual coaching, he's never really had to face major adversity in the sense of he's always had a ton of talent, and he's always, again, a lot of the coaching has been reminding everyone what their weaknesses are, not allowing them to absorb how great people are writing about them and remind them how great they are. Nick Saban's biggest battle was always against the media. This year was absolutely not the case, where there was actual real challenges, where there had to be growth and development, and there was a lot of inexperience all across the board here at important positions that Saban and his coaching staff had to coach up, had to work through, had to develop. 2 new coordinators, which I know, again, that's old news for Saban. It's not something new. He deals with it every single year. I get it. But, again, 2 new coordinators now. Inexperienced quarterback. No one you could really rely on. Like, there was no one going to the season you said, oh, that's the guy. You had Bryce Young. You had Mac Jones. You had Devontae Smith. You had Tua. You had, all these great, and now great NFL players same thing in Alabama, great players you could always rely on. There wasn't a great player on this roster going into you could say, oh, yeah, he's got to be, outstanding. First time in a long time where, again, the talent relative to Alabama talent standards was questionable. And to Saban's credit, it wasn't even just the Texas game where he built them up. Even go back to the Auburn game, where that should have been a rollover. Right? I know it's a rivalry game, I get it, and it's a rivalry game on the road. But let's be honest here, but how Alabama was playing, you roll into the Iron Bowl, it should be 30-0 at halftime. And so to need a miracle, which they did at 4th and 31, you need a miracle, you got the miracle. To then take Alabama, who was vulnerable and was one miracle away from losing to Auburn and having their college football playoff hopes dashed in a rivalry game, to then in the course of 5 days have his team prepared and ready and confident to play at a level where they could go toe-to-toe, beat, and frankly outplay and dominate Georgia, the best team in the country for the last 3 years, the 2-time reigning defending champions. That alone is Nick Saban's best coaching job, I would say, from 1 week to the next. But you look at his overall season, not having talent, I keep saying that. I apologize. I got to walk that back here. Not having reliable talent going into the year that Alabama truly has. Having a questioned quarterback in Jalen Milroe that showed his warts early. That had an offensive line that was shaky. That had playmakers at receiver that weren't making plays. That had defense that struggled stopping teams. You had so much adversity Nick Saban's really never had to fight through, but also legitimate questions Alabama, for really the first time since 2007, they've never had to face or never had to answer. Saban answered all of them and got this team to the college football playoff. It's his best coaching job ever. It's his best coaching job he's ever done. It's incredible. It's incredible what he did. And I think he deserves so much credit for it. And by the way, I don't think I was wrong. I don't think this is me misjudging Alabama. And now it's well, you should have seen it coming. Of course, this was how the season was going to end. They were the lowest ranked in the preseason they've been in a long time. It's 4th. They were 4th in the preseason poll, but the first time they weren't 1st, 2nd, or 3rd in a long time. So that's a big deal. But still, 4th is still pretty high. But again, you lose against Alabama, you lose against Texas the way you did, and to then get your team to rally, not lose faith, beat Ole Miss, beat LSU, survive Auburn, and then again outplay Georgia, and they pushed them around. That, I think, is Nick Saban's greatest coaching job of his career. And just that week alone, I will argue right now, this SEC title win, right, this year's SEC championship is the 3rd best coaching job, just in terms of, or the 3rd best win is maybe the better way to put it. 3rd best win of Saban's career. I would put that win over a few titles. Outside of the 2017 national title game, which Georgia fans, my apologies, you know that one well. Tua comes in at halftime. Gutsy decision to make that you win it in overtime. Then I would go back 2 years. The decision in 2015 to kick the onside kick that changed the game in your first college football playoff national title appearance against Clemson. I would argue 2017 national title, 2015 national title are 1 and 2 in terms of just game, like strictly a game. Coaching job Saban is done. I would say right now the SEC title game is third. I did not think Bama had a chance against Georgia on Saturday. Especially coming off the Iron Bowl, so much vulnerability, so much opportunity to lose confidence against a 2-time reigning champs riding a 29-game winning streak. They outplayed them. Flat out outplayed them. There was never a doubt who the better team was in that game. And so that, I think, just was overall the third best win on Saturday of Saban's career. But the totality of the season, where you started, game against Texas, the actual improvements you've had to make throughout this entire season, to get to where you are, it has been Nick Saban's greatest coaching job of his career.